Welcome to the Awkward Lift. This is the podcast where I want to explore things that I am interested in, my interests, my hobbies, sports, fitness, jiu-jitsu, martial arts, and languages and cultures and learnings. This is about the awkward lift. I mean, for me, learning is awkwardly lifting. You want to get to, or I want to get, at least that's my idea. I want to get to a higher place, like a baby bird taking its first flaps. It might fall, but it's okay. There's another baby bird next to it that will do it better, maybe. No, but that you get the idea. um yeah, and I want to do this podcast. This is the first time I do this introduction for my own podcast, actually. But I want to do this podcast where it's all about the teacher and student perspective, and so I want to learn new things, but not only from experts. I think experts, they hold information, but especially from teachers, because teachers, they also know how to apply this to other people. Well, for themselves, to themselves, hopefully, but also to multiple students. And they know how to, you know, customize this and tailor the learnings, the teachings to different individuals. And yeah, that's what I'm interested in. I mean, there's so much information out there, but how do you actually apply it? How do you do this? And teachers have this experience, hopefully. Huh? And so today I'm with Rebecka Latos, who is okay. All right. Rebecka is an expert in feet. And I'm laughing because this is awkward for me. This is new to me. This is like completely, I never thought I would speak with somebody who was going to teach me, things about the feet, and I never knew that it was that important, actually. So Rebecka is a very international lady, been living abroad in many different cultures and places, and learned languages, which is another topic for another day, maybe. And Rebecka is also very experienced in yoga, right? Um, Rebecka is I will say she is for now, a yoga teacher, and she has experience in hatha yoga, yin yoga, restorative yoga, yoga philosophy, yeah, and meditation, and much, much more. And education-wise, her background is in sports science, bachelor's degree in sports science, and a master in global health. And so Rebecka knows her stuff. And yeah, Rebecka, what do you do? You do collaborations with sustainable businesses. You do talks and workshops. You did a TEDx recently, right? And you work with clients. You have clients where you work with and help them and teach them about their feet. So welcome, Rebecka.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
great to have you
So,
here.
yes, great to be here. I'm a yoga teacher, as mentioned. I also have now started to dive in more into foot health, how we can improve our functionality of our feet, and everything within holistic health, really. Today I'm working with my business as a yoga teacher since almost a decade back internationally, and started to look more into the health of my feet a few years ago. And today I have the opportunity to also help people with their foot issues. Or sometimes not even having issues, but just getting a bit more awareness of how we can prevent any problems with your feet. And yeah, like mentioned before, there are some collaborations with different businesses that are either focusing on culture, traveling, health, smaller businesses to lift them up and give them a bit more light in the social media world. And now and then, when there's time for it, I do some other photo shoots and commercials and so on the side. So I'm juggling a lot of different balls.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have so many questions about feet, but let's try to keep it a bit condensed maybe. So
Yes.
I know I have a lot. I have problems or things with my feet that I know
Mm.
might that I have a feeling they might impact whatever, my sports or my everyday life. I don't know about everyday life, but
Mm.
sports. I have a foot that I broke when I was 20 or 19, um, on like these bones, but on the feet, on the
Yeah.
foot.
Yeah.
And my
Mm.
foot has curled up a bit. I always thought
Mm.
it's probably not perfect, or it's probably not good, at least. And I was worried when I got into kickboxing after that, and with that effect and so on. When you're 20 or 19, I didn't feel it much. But now, I don't know if my sciatica is related to it. Okay.
Mm.
So, I've also had uh, rashes on my feet from training jiu-jitsu, for example. I have my toes. I know that I've been using, you know, cool looking pointy shoes, when I was working at the office.
Yeah.
I was doing that a lot.
So
And
popular.
I just felt like it cannot be good. I mean, I just felt my toes, they don't want to be choked, but I felt like I was kind of choking them. But, you gotta look
They've
good.
been in a jail.
They've been
Yeah.
in jail. They've been in jail. That's how it
Yeah.
felt. But I thought, I want to wear cool shoes. So my question is,
Mm.
what is wrong with people's feet? What's up?
Great question. And a big question. So, first of all, not everyone's feet have something wrong with them, right? But looking at the Western culture, there is a tendency, there is more issues with the feet. It could be for issues that are like disformities, which means that uh, often our feet have been in too narrow shoes since we were little. And so when our skeletal is expanding and developing as kids, and we still already from then don't have enough space, our feet will grow inside the shoe. So with time, people start getting a shoe shaped foot instead of having a foot shaped shoe, right? Exactly. So a majority of people have it like that in Western cultures. But if you look at Eastern cultures or in rural communities or different tribes, they have proper feet.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
that's
what's the
it.
most common thing that people have, um, you know, the most common problem that people might have with their feet? Is there
Mm.
one?
Um, Yeah, so the easiest thing if you want to have a look at your own feet and say, I don't feel like I have pain in my feet. I don't feel like I have any issues when I do my exercises and so on. Do I still have a tendency to maybe have problems in the future? The first thing you can start looking at is the alignment of your toes, so your metatarsals. So metatarsals are the bones, the skeleton in the toes. And the main thing they want to look at is the big toe. The big toe is the most important pressure point of our foot. And so if our big toe is pointing towards our smaller toes rather
Hmm.
than straight, or preferably away from the smaller toes, now you're looking at your feet, huh?
Yeah, of course.
Then, then if it points anywhere but away from the toes,
Uh-huh.
not the greatest alignment, unfortunately. Um, and it's basically because you wear shoes that do not allow that have a too narrow toe box, so
Yeah.
our feet can't be freely spread. So imagine yourself that you have gloves on your hands, right?
Hmm.
And you wear these gloves as many hours as you wear your shoes. And
Hmm.
imagine these gloves having the same material as your shoes, how much do you think you would be able to do with your hands later? Would you be able to play piano? Would you be able to write nicely? Would you be able to, to do very specific movements with your fingers? Probably not, because you can't move them so much. They've been
Yeah.
in a little cage, right? So same thing there with the feet. People can do great things with the feet, the ones that work with their feet more. But a lot of
Mm.
people, they don't even have a connection to their toes. There is a like a complete blockage between brain and body. And I see that a lot when I teach yoga and have a bit of more of a heightened focus onto my classes where people are suffering a lot from foot issues.
My toes, they're like, I could move this a little bit, and these move like a
Yeah,
block. Like the rest of the
smaller
toes, my big
toes.
toe, yeah. But I feel like they're I don't know. I mean, they feel a bit half numb almost, you know? I don't have connection to the individual toes.
Yeah.
I can barely spread them out, you know.
Mm. That's probably because you haven't been putting as much effort or awareness onto your feet, right? If we have a muscle we're not training or using, it's not going to work properly. If we have a some injury in our body, we rest that body part for some time. When we start
Yeah.
using again, it's not going to be as smooth as it was before, right? But imagine not working with your toes or your feet at all until maybe your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or even later.
Mhm.
Well, there's gonna be some resistance there. It's gonna be a bit more challenging. And our feet are the foundation of our entire body. So we should give a bit more love to them.
So I never thought of them as, okay, sure, foundation and so on. Uh, but the
Mm.
toes, like how much do they play? Okay, just to give you, you see sometimes street artists that are without
Mm.
arms, and I don't know if you see that. I've seen street artists painting with their
Yeah.
toes. They're holding on to the brush,
Mm.
and they do amazing paintings, and they have this dexterity
Mm.
in their toes, right? So that gave me the
Mm.
idea, like, okay, if I ever lose my arms, I know it's not over. Like I can, I can get my toes to do whatever my fingers can do. Hopefully, you know. But I
Yeah.
never thought like, okay, but what about my feet now? Do I need to work with my toes? Do I need to do that for any reason? Actually,
Mm. Mm.
in jiu-jitsu, for example,
Uh,
uh, we do balance. And I think the better you're able to balance on your ball of your foot, for example, the better, sure. But yeah, what can you do if you have, like, what can you not do if you don't have strong toes or trained toes? What are
mm.
you more easily falling over?
Mm. Yeah, good question. So they bear so much weight, our feet, right? They bear a whole body weight and often external weight also. So they are very exposed to load often. And when the feet are not in a healthy alignment and then continue bearing more load, eventually with time, the feet will get worse and worse. The alignment of the feet and the toes will get worse and worse. You can see that on elder people, especially now this generation where you see people in their 50s, 60s that are used to having maybe like office shoes, right? And they've had that for many generations. Their feet are often in a very bad state, while you see
Mm.
younger people having much healthier feet because they might not have had that environment where they had to have that type of shoes. But our feet facilitate important movements, like in martial arts, right? Which both you and me are coming from, and also in yoga, for example. The feet are not just two pieces that we're standing on. We have the most amount of neuroreceptors in our body, so we get from in the whole body that comes from their feet, right? So our feet have tremendous amount of neuroreceptors, which means they're sending signals, information to the rest of the body. So when you learn to walk as a little kid, you actually starting to understand the world through your feet.
Mm.
And if you have an issue with your feet in martial arts, there will be, a greater chance to not have the greatest balance, like you mentioned there before, or technique in general. Also, elder people falling more often because their balance gets worse. But if you have a bit more better connection to your feet, to your ankles, and so on, you'll reduce that risk. Also reducing just the chance of injuries in sports in the future. It affects our walking gait, it affects our knees, our hips, our lower back, the whole posture, because
Mm,
everything is connected to the feet. But,
mm,
we live in a culture where the feet are something we're hiding. They're ugly, they're nasty, it's uncomfortable, we don't want to show them, or people don't want to see them. We hide them in shoes that are super good looking, but that are actually very bad for our feet. So we tend to prioritize other things in health and fitness, and overlooking the importance of foot health. Yeah.
okay, so let's continue talking about shoes. I want to get into your martial art, your capoeira, which I think is awesome. Um, but before that, okay, shoes. So there are
Barefoot.
so many different kind of shoes. I think
Yeah.
my first maybe more than 10 years ago, I started to learn that, okay, the padded Nike shoes, I think Nike invented these padded heels, which gave
Mm,
people this false idea of safety or security, that it's okay to jog or run with their heel
mm,
landing on the ground first. And people talk about this, the shock. You get this shock when
mm.
you
Shock
run,
absorption. Yeah.
right? And that's not good for your knees and your hips and so on. And so you should run
Mm,
landing on your ball of your foot, for example. And you should switch out
mm,
to low profile soles, like where it's an
mm,
even profile. But there are so many different kind
mm,
of shoes. I mean, I have broad feet. I find many shoes have
mm,
been problematic. I wore Converse a lot
mm.
as a kid, a
Oh no.
teenager, because they're cool and cheap and so on.
Yeah. Same. Same.
And they just feel horrible. Like you feel the big toe. It's just mushed from by the Converse shoes,
Yeah.
and there's this
Mm,
rubber cup just holding in all the whatever sweat or whatever in there. And it's just, yeah, it didn't feel good. But so
no.
you have this high heel on many sports shoes. What about that? And also you have many shoes that have like a curve where the toes go up and they're not even touching the ground. Is that a problem?
Yeah.
What about these
It's
kind of
so fun to
things?
see how she starts. Yeah, so it's so funny to see how shoes are looking like now, because there is a whole history of how the shoes start to look like they are, and now it feels like everything just gets into the extreme, any directions really. So basically, if you want to have a healthy shoe, simply said, I would say look for barefoot shoes. Basically, there are foot-shaped shoes, but barefoot shoes has been a huge thing that now in the last few years is growing, which is great because people are starting to wake up and have a better awareness of it. But there are different thoughts about to have thick soles and thin soles and so on. Basically, barefoot shoes, they promote a natural foot. Allows the feet to move and to flex as they would do if they're barefoot, right? Just a little bit more support. And there are barefoot shoes that have a thicker sole and also that have a very thin sole. I
Mm-hmm.
tend to use barefoot shoes. They're very thin. I can feel all the small rocks when I walk, but I love it. And also, my feet have been prepared for it. So it's not that you should like from thick, I don't know, sneakers, regular, fancy, modern sneakers, go into like minimalistic barefoot shoes because then you can actually injure yourself. So you want to gradually find a bit more minimalistic shoe step by step, right? Focusing on the width of the toe box. And then, depending on person to person, some people might be in such a bad state of their foot health that they actually need a bit more cushioning, they need a bit more insole, or not insole, sorry, but a sole on the shoe to have a bit more support, depending on what their foot issue is. And this is very individualistic, right? Um, but otherwise, we don't want to have too much ankle support or too much heel support, because we want to actually be able to strengthen our foot from our own movements, from our own training, from our own walking gait. Imagine when you break something, right? You break a foot, a leg, you have it in a cast, and then you're not really allowing the body to move naturally in the same way until you take that off, and then suddenly you're going to start walking or moving as you did before, which is not really going to be a smooth transition. So what you want to do is to slowly, gradually train your foot into being able to have more barefoot shoes, and not use shoes to have thick soles or a lot of support in your heel or your ankle, because that gives a bigger chance to injure yourself. If you have this
Mm.
super supportive shoe that squeezes everything in, and then you suddenly take it off or you do another movement practice, your foot might not be getting so much support from itself. It might not be that strong, right?
Yeah.
Greater opportunity for injuries. So yeah, you want to have barefoot shoes to improve your balance and to reduce the risk of foot problems, which traditional footwear have, right? To strengthen the muscles, but also to create more mobility and flexibility into your feet.
What do you think about the shoes that I showed you yesterday? The Chinese
Oh gosh,
shoes.
can we even call them
Those.
shoes? Yeah,
What's your take on that?
it's very interesting. Yeah, so what we did right yesterday, we had a little talk about fun facts about feet, right? And there is different traditions that have different looks and views on shoes and feet. And the one that you were referring to, the Chinese like binding of the feet, horrific, really, really, really scary. I have seen a lot of crazy things, but I haven't seen that one. So
Mm.
that was a first for me, actually. But yeah, it is a thing, right? Luckily, there's a lot of other cultures that have the opposite view of what that Chinese binding or the Western view of the shoes. I don't know. Do you want me to take it up a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So, for example, when you look at, for example, the Chinese binding, right? That was what they did in that picture. Remember, they were squeezing the feet together to make them as small as possible,
Yeah, they were
and
basically
extreme. But also,
pulling the heel towards the
yeah,
toes and like bending, slowly binding the foot from small age, right? Because it
yeah,
was fashion or whatever. I found it
yeah,
in a book from my mom's collection of fashion from different historical
yeah,
fashion from different corners of the world.
uh,
Yeah, crazy.
yeah. Well, we're
Funny.
doing the similar thing, but not as extreme.
Right.
Uh, some shoes are super pointy, and this is something that got back from, I think it was around the 14th, the 15th century,
Mm.
where they start to have super pointy shoes, and this was, I believe, in Europe that it started. And that was a statement for fashion, like you mentioned there. It was a symbol of wealth, of status, right? Uh, and you wanted to have a long, narrow, pointy shoe.
Hmm.
And in the 60th centuries, it continued. However, it was not as pointy shoes. Um, so it's something that's been there for so long, and also the heels of the shoes, right? If you have a like a higher sole or
Mm.
just simply regular heels on our shoes, both for men and women,
Mm.
that was also from I think it was the 17th century, and was a Persian inspired style, and actually was the function was to help horseback riders to keep their feet secure in this stirrups, I
Right.
think they're called, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And that makes sense, right? But how many of us are riding our horses every day? So this influenced Western Europe with time.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the 18th century, there was this high heels and different type of soles for the shoes.
Hmm.
And they also symbolize this privilege and high social status. This actually, I mean, if you think about fashion, obviously it came from France, right? And
Of
then in
course.
19th century, Uh, yeah, in the 19th century, the heels got a different look, especially on the women's shoe wear. And it was again a part of the fashion, different heels, different styles, different heights, different thickness of it. And it continued even more than to the 20th century. And now we see all crazy type of heels, right? You can see on social media, like there's a freaking plastic teddy bear that's actually a heel or something like that. But 21st century, something is happening. Now we're waking up. We're having a bit more holistic approach. And so the wider shoes, less heels is getting more normalized. More women are avoiding heels. So that is great. But like you mentioned with the Chinese binding there, that I'm not sure if it exists now today, maybe in some smaller cultures. But if you look at the Asian cultures, for example, in Japan, in Korea, also in like Indian and Hindu cultures, you're actually having you see the shoe, or actually the foot, as the lowest part of the body, the dirtiest part of the body. So you don't want to have the feet being pointed towards someone, because that would be disrespectful. You also always want to take care of your feet and take your shoes off when entering someone's house, or a temple, or a religious place.
Or restaurant.
And that is, I think, pardon?
Or restaurant. In Japan, you take off your shoes in many
Yeah,
restaurants.
yeah, 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 exactly.
Traditional
Yeah.
restaurants.
Um,
Amazing.
mm, and because it shows the importance of cleanliness, right? And a respect for that place that you're going into. Um, Also, in the Eastern cultures and the Muslim cultures, even there, you remove the shoes before you enter a home or a mosque. Even there, they see also the soles of the feet as the dirtiest part of the body. So it's important to show that you're having clean feet, especially during prayers, and when you show them where you're sitting somewhere. And also in Indian and Hindu cultures, touching someone's feet is a respect of, or it's a gesture of respect, right? So if you touch an elderly person's feet, you're showing a tremendous amount of respect for that person. So
They better
and
be
it
clean.
even goes back to, pardon?
They better be clean, those feet.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. Then you have a bit more awareness of it. And in African cultures, it's a lot of you see more like endurance and strength and movement there. With the jumping and the tapping dances they're doing there,
Mm.
and also before entering a home there, to respect their place,
Mm.
you have clean feet. Western culture, though, we walk with shoes here and there. We don't really take care of them as much. We don't have them being cleaned every time we enter a new place, right? And we spend more time in very narrow shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I I can just speak a bit for myself. Wearing yeah, like I mentioned, when I was working at the office, I think it was during the pandemic that I started to change a lot. But even I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 12 years ago, I found out about this, the that running shoes, especially these commercial sports shoes with the thick heels, they all have that. It's like it's so hard to find a Nike or a Reebok or whatever shoe that don't have that. It's like
Yeah.
they don't barely exist. And I was doing running, and so it said like, okay, you should start running on your ball of your foot and so on. It took some time to get used to it. Talking about when you mentioned that you shouldn't go just from a thick profile to all of a sudden this super slim one. But yeah, going into running, I just felt like, wow, my calves and my muscles in the calves and around like the lower part of the leg needed to work so much more all of a sudden. And I thought,
Yeah.
I can't run more than 5 minutes on the ball of my foot. This is crazy. So I had to retrain. So I was doing, if I was gonna go for an hour of run, I did 5 minutes, whatever I
Yeah.
could do on in the new way, and then I reverted to the back way for the rest of the run, and then I increased that amount, and so I came to this, Now I can run on the ball of my foot without any problems. But yeah, recently during the pandemic, I uh, I started to run barefoot. I found this I found this
Nice.
slope next close to my house, and there was no people there. There was no people, and there was not an asphalt road. It was a gravel and rocky, like with rocks actually. And I was running there
Mm,
for a bit, but during the lockdown, I don't know, the pandemic, I got a bit crazy in the sense of I just want to try new things. You know, I want to try
mm,
completely new ways of doing whatever. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna run barefoot here because there's no people to judge me anyway. So whatever. And
yeah.
I was sprinting, but I also got into this thing. I found this thing about flow, you know, and flow and training. And what is flow? So flow is when you get into something so deeply that you don't think about other things. You're just almost like in a
Mm,
trance or something like that. Okay, so I thought, okay,
yeah.
what can I do? How can I make this sprint more like undistracted? I don't want to be distracted by
Mm,
other things. I just want to be focused. So yeah, barefoot, rocks, sharp rocks, you know. So I had to really just pay attention to not stepping on a crazy rock,
mm,
and it was amazing, you know. And I also found this thing about grounding, you know. And they say that grounding is good because it gives
yeah.
you good energy to the body and so on. And I thought, you know, and they're like, yeah, you know, these. I'm very open to all sorts of information, so I found some information
Mm,
that yeah, you know, it can really help you to prevent you from diseases and stuff. And now that you have COVID, you know, grounding can really help you or something like that. I thought, okay, whatever,
mm-hmm.
I want to try this. I want to try it because of the challenge. And yeah, it was with the focus, with the attention to the feet, it was possible, and I could run almost as fast without the shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got these, you know, to be socially accepted, I got these barefoot shoes, these minimal profile that I run with now. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you know, you feel, I feel everything. Like you feel the asphalt, the edges of the rocks and stuff. And it did
Mm,
strain, it did hurt a bit in the beginning. But the foot gets used to it, and then it actually feels good.
mm,
It's like I'm much more aware also. I can feel the feet on the ground much more, which is also good when
yeah.
I'm warming up. In the beginning of a run, I want to warm up and I want
Mm,
to feel the parts of the foot, I guess, and the ankles because I've twisted them so many times and I don't want to have that again, right? So I
mm,
go through
mm,
my warm up and I'm like paying attention, like in a meditation, like, you know, put your attention to the head, put your attention to the shoulders, put your attention to you go through the whole body like a body scan, you know, doing that while
yeah.
running. And I feel that's been great. And it's challenging. It feels good. But what's the benefit of this really? Like, what's the benefit of running with those kind of shoes when you can run with cool Nike shoes?
Yeah. Uh, some people could say, "Oh, you know, I've never had problems with my feet. I prefer, you know, a good-looking shoe and so on." You know, some people may continue in that way, and then I guess that's the right for them if it works for them. But you see more often when you start talking about feet and about body awareness that people are actually getting used to not being in the greatest health. Like they're used to having a bit of pain here and there. They're used to having a bit of worse balance. They're used to, you know, a bit of discomfort here and there, but it's a part of, you know, this type of thing. Like running should be painful, whatever. Like, people get so used to that, not knowing that you can actually feel better. It's like yoga, for example. Be like, no, I'm fine. You know, I feel great in my body. I don't need yoga. You know, I've lived without yoga for 30, 40, 50 years. And then I start actually doing yoga for some reason, pandemic or similar. And then they stop doing it and like, oh my God, I feel so much worse. I have pain here and there. Like, I didn't know I could feel better, but now I know how good I could have felt, and now I don't do it. I don't feel that good. So it could be that also with feet and shoes. Um, like mentioned before, you have not as much connection to the ground. So if you have super rigid shoes, you have less connection to the ground you're stepping on. When you're running, you bear so much more load on each step because it's your body weight plus more because of that load, 1 foot at a time.
Mm.
And every step can basically be a step towards more injuries or greater chance of injure yourself, or just creating a disformity of your feet. Rather not disformity, but continuing the disformity. Because if you today walk around with fancy modern shoes, you probably have done that for at least majority of your lifetime. So if you don't have problems yet with your feet, I would say it's just a matter of time. And there could be numerous, issues. Flat feet, right? Or weak ankles, or hallux valgus, like these bony parts around the big toe. We may not have pain now, but there's a bigger chance to get pain and issues later on in life.
Yeah. Have you heard of these? Some people say, actually, you don't need the little toe, the pinky toe, whatever you would call it. Have you heard
Yeah,
anybody
the
say that?
pinky toe.
Like, you don't need that toe,
That
actually.
you don't need it?
Yeah, you could cut it off. It doesn't do anything for your balance or anything.
No, no.
No?
Well, some people might feel like they don't need their toes at all because they are completely disconnected to them. They just walk on the sole, the rest of the foot, right? I mean, the biggest, most important part of the foot is the big toe, right? But the pinky toe obviously maybe has a bit of a lesser um, importance compared to the big toe.
Mm.
But if your pinky toe is squeezed in, something called hammer toe,
Mm.
so for you guys who are maybe looking when listening to this one, is that your pinky toe is like bent in sometimes or squeezed in towards the
Totally.
smaller toes. That is called the hammer toe. You have that as well?
It's a bit curled and it's pointing inwards. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. So
Is that
so
cool?
that pinky toe might not, sorry?
Is it cool? Is it good? It's not good.
Cool and good? No. Neither.
Ah, so close.
But there is hope. There is hope.
Okay.
Um, when the pinky toe is so squeezed in, it doesn't have much of an effect, right? Like it doesn't give you better awareness of your foot, right? Because it's kind of just like I would say like a dead little tail there. But if you can spread your toes more, create more width in your feet with your toes, then your pinky toe can start getting a bit of connection as well, and you can move it separately,
Mm.
right? Which is something that would improve your functionality of your foot, and the movement practice that you're engaging in.
Like a toe spreader could improve the functionality
Mm,
of your foot.
yes.
I
Yeah,
see them on
exactly. So
Instagram.
toe
People are
spreaders.
drinking their coffee and like taking pictures of their toes spread out, like spa day,
Are
whatever.
you talking about my Instagram now?
Is that
It's
yours?
basically what I also do there. Yeah.
May I thought I connected that. I don't know. I mean, I seen it a lot. I
Yeah.
think.
There's probably a lot. Yeah.
What
Um,
about toe spreaders?
no, but
What are they good for?
toe spreaders are a little tool, usually like a silicone, rubber kind of material they put through your toes. So there's a bit of gap. It supports separating or splaying your toes,
Mm-hmm.
to let your toes point away from each other, just
Mm-hmm.
like a hand, right? So if you guys are looking when listening, your fingers, when you spread them out and being relaxed, right, they point to all different directions, and that makes it easy for us to move the fingers. Whereas if they'll be squeezed in, it will be a bit harder to move them, right?
Mm.
So when we have our toe spreaders, we are helping our foot to lengthen, to extend, to spread or splay the
Mm.
toes. there is a lot of muscles and tension that could be in between the metatarsal bones in our feet that also squeezes the toes in more. So if there's stress and tension in the foot, toe spreaders might not be enough. But toe spreaders is a very common thing to start with,
Okay.
which you should in that case use when you bear load on the foot. So it's not that you can be like, I'm gonna get more space between my toes, so I'm gonna sleep with my toe spreaders. That's not gonna help much because your feet will be relaxed, they have no load. Even yin yoga, relaxing or watching a movie and have toe spreaders, not the greatest effect. The best thing is when you're standing on your feet or when
Okay.
you're walking, running, doing weightlifting, right? When you're bearing load on the feet and you guide your toes away from each other, that's when you get the best effect of them. So that is one way to improve your functionality of your feet, to let the big toes point one direction and the pinky toe the opposite direction and the rest of the toes follow, right?
So you
And there's
can
different,
sorry,
yeah,
I think you
there's
have a little
different
delay.
qualities of these toe spreaders also. Yeah, all good. Um, and some toe spreaders are not spreading all the toes. Again, the most important thing, I guess, is between the first and the second, which is the big toe, and then the toe next to the big toe. But essentially, you want to be able to spread all the toes to open up your foot.
So how do you spread your toes? How do you use a toe spreader as you're working out, for example? How does that? Isn't that getting in the way?
Depends. If you have fashionable, regular, modern shoes, then you'll probably not even be able to wear them because there will be no space in your shoe. There's already not enough space for your feet. Um, but if you have barefoot shoes or foot-shaped shoes,
Hmm.
you may, in some cases, you could wear the toe spreaders. Otherwise, when you're barefoot, or if you have a bit wider socks, or if you have toe socks,
Hmm.
then you can wear the toe spreaders, right? And that could improve your foot health to start wearing them. But also, if you're not used to that, starting off maybe just 20 minutes now and then, because there may be a huge physical discomfort depending on the state of your foot. And for some of people, they can do it during a whole workout or several times during the day or bigger parts of the day. So, yeah.
So this toe spreader, I mean, the ones that I've seen are like a foam thing, right? It's
Mm,
like a foam whatever. And I also seen one in
rubbery. Like that.
yeah, sort of like rubbery foam whatever, like a yoga mat kind of thing, but thicker or so. But I also
Okay.
seen some plastic thing, which is a slim pro. I mean, if it's the shape of a foam and you have it, should it be connected from underneath or from above? It that doesn't look like it would fit in a shoe. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, it almost sounds like you're explaining about these tools that you use to spread your toes when you paint your toenails. That's not the same thing, right?
Yeah,
So some people they used that back
that's
in the
not a toe
days. I think
spreader.
people still use it. No, I mean
Oh my
that
god!
maybe was
See,
the start. Maybe that was the idea. I don't know, but
see,
uh, so toe spreaders they have a thin rim on the top of the toes and then below. So it's basically small pockets for your
okay,
toes. So you
okay,
put your toes into these pockets, but they're open. So your toes basically have um, a little outfit on them,
okay.
and and some toe spreaders have a little rim or a little rubber band that is also around the big toe, and some do not have that. Some are thicker, some are thinner. So it really depends also um, what state your foot is in and what type of toe spreader you should have. Yeah, I've tried several different ones and definitely see the difference between, different qualities of it. With some that you can change the width between the toes.
Hmm.
So as you progress with splaying your toes, you can wear that same type of toe spreader for a longer period of time because you can decide how big the space should be. Some might have
Mm.
materials that are not that comfortable for your skin. You know, when there's a friction, that could be a discomfort. When
Mm-hmm.
there's humidity or warmth, or when your feet start getting a bit more swollen due to workout, for example. So there's different types of toe spreaders, but basically a little rubber outfit for your toes, or silicone, that guides your feet or your toes to open up a bit more. Essentially, doing that barefoot, if you don't have shoes that are wide enough, which are barefoot shoes.
So that's like is that a static position for the toes? Is that like a stretch, sort of, for the toes? Or
Kind of, you
can
can say, yeah, because it's guiding the feet to open up the metatarsal bones, and put load on the feet in an alignment of the toes, which the foot is not used to. So it kind of can act like a little bit of a, I don't like using the word stretch, but basically like a stretch, letting the metatarsal bones, so the bones in your toes, to splay.
Mhm.
Then static, yes, because they will hold that position, but
Mhm.
also not necessarily needing to be static because you're moving as you work out. You know, you're moving as you walk. Your foot is changing, you're moving all different shapes. If you're doing martial arts, you're moving the feet in different angles. So it is not necessarily static.
Okay, so it's you're able to do dynamic moves with your toes, like you can flex a little bit in
Yeah,
these toe
definitely,
spreaders.
definitely.
You said you don't like to use the word stretch. How so? Why not?
Yeah.
And rather splay? What's the difference?
So stretch, I think it's mostly from in the yogic perspective, because if you say as a yoga teacher or as a instructor stretching this thing or feeling the stretch, it can sometimes be hard to know what is enough for it to be stretched. And the purpose is not stretching. The purpose is a sense of opening, a release of tension, a lengthening, right? Some argue that when it comes to the state of stretching physiologically, that means that you already pushed your body or that specific body part into such an extent that it's rather harmful, that it tears on, joints, ligaments, and tendons or muscle tissues.
Okay.
You want to be a little bit behind that sense of, oh, now the stretch is appearing, because if you're too forceful in your body, for example, in yoga, right, or if you're too forceful in training your feet, your body is very smart, more smart than our ego. So it can then tense itself up to protect you.
Mm.
So, for example, let's say yoga, hip opener. You force yourself, you want to have open hips, so you push, and you feel a lot of this so called stretch. But your body feels that you are in danger. You're pushing into a limit where the body doesn't feel safe. It can experience a sense of pain, and it will then protect you, and it can then start tensing you up. And then there you're continuing because, it's the Western world's way of fitness, the Jane Fonda way, to push, and stretch, and lengthen, and all that. That you don't even think about what is actually healthy or good for you. You just want to have that freaking stretch, right? So what you want to aim for instead, if you can step away from the word stretch and just feel, am I lengthening something? Am I opening up, right? Am I extending? Am I releasing tension? Am I opening up to more space into my body rather than
Mhm.
just pulling and stretching?
Right. Because when you flex a muscle and it goes into the contracted position or
Yeah.
state, then you want to release that into its relaxed state again, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to stretch it,
Yeah.
that's like that could be releasing, but it can also be more than releasing. It could be where you're actually stretching it from this natural relaxed state into a supernatural. No, but a super stretch.
Supernatural. Or you go so far that you're creating an inflammation in the body, and that is not
Mm,
great. That can take months of
mm,
healing. Yeah, you don't want to, like anything, you don't want to overdo it.
Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. So these toe spreaders, they're not the ones you use when you paint your toenails. That's not.
No,
That's. I thought that was a toe spreader. I was like, are people actually wearing that? They actually like, yeah, splay their toes
no,
like
no,
this. No. Okay.
no,
So
definitely not.
there are some specific tools for this that probably cost like hundreds of euros or dollars or whatever on Amazon, right?
Um, Depends on the quality
Uh-huh.
and where you buy them from, but more or less, I would say a good quality one. The ones that I do know that are in good quality would be around 300-400 crowns, which is yeah about 300. 30 to 38 euros.
Hmm.
You can find cheaper ones definitely, but I've had students that had cheaper ones, and they sorry, and they they broke within a couple of weeks. So then they instead bought some from me, and they've been lasting a bit longer.
What a waste. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You think you buy something cheaper, but it's about the quality. I guess you get what you pay for.
Yeah. So you train capoeira and you go to the gym, right? And you
Mm,
practice
mm,
yoga and so on. In
mm.
capoeira, how much are you on the ball of the foot? Is that a lot?
Yeah, 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 definitely. I would say a lot. Majority of the time,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, I mean, sometimes we're on our hands, but
Yeah.
and the feet are up in the air. But majority of time, we're working a lot with our feet, all different angles, which is
Right.
both great, but also something you should, take caution in. For example, I had an injury a few months ago in a little an accident, and what I then was told was to be a bit careful with capoeira because you're putting the foot in so many different angles. There might be an angle where the foot is not fully healed,
Hmm.
and there it can be triggered. So, but if you start from a state of not having any new injuries at all, then you can strengthen your feet in a great way, and your toes also will get better. I had a event I was attending now, a huge capoeira event recently, and observed the students or the capoeiristas' feet. And I have to say, from a group of like 50, 100 people, of all groups of 50, 100 people, that there have been open, naked feet, this has been the most healthiest feet I've seen. Um, they've all had 80% probably of them, if not more, had better than average feet to really good feet compared to people that I see go to my yoga classes for years
Mm.
because they bear low, they put pressure, they jump, they run, they fight barefoot. So your feet
Uh,
are being guided and invited into a more natural shape for every movement, for every time you bear load onto them.
so since I got in touch with you, I haven't really trained much martial arts, so I haven't been able to really observe what people's toes and feet look like. But for example, I know when you do kickboxing, for example, you you stand a lot on the ball of your foot when you do
Mm,
when you
yeah.
do knees, like knee attacks or kicks. You
Mm,
stand on the ball and you turn as you're standing on the ball many times.
mm.
Um, and for that, you need to have that like those. And also, for example, if you do a handstand, you cannot do it without your fingers, right? Can you?
Yeah, that would be very
I mean,
difficult.
you're
I, I,
using your
I
fingers to
have not
press,
seen anyone do that.
right? You're pressing with
I
your
can't
fingers.
imagine. Yeah. Mm,
So it would be logical. I mean, now your feet are much longer than your hand. Maybe the hand, the part of the hand which is not fingers compared to the fingers. That's like
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
50-50, right? Whereas on the feet, I
Yeah.
mean, the foot without the toes, I don't know, what is the 80-20 maybe or something like that. But still,
Yeah. Yeah.
it would make sense that if you have strong toes and they can grip the floor better, you would have much better balance in
Yeah.
sports.
Definitely.
Mm,
Definitely, because we use so much. If we can use our toes as a huge support in movement, in balancing, in rotations. Um, for example, if we take yoga, different movements we do in yoga or postures we do in yoga are similar to martial arts, or are actually based on martial arts, right? When we do balancing positions, they might look similar to any martial arts movements. I can see a trend of my students that have greater misalignments of their toes, having also worse balance, having
mm,
a worse quality of transition from position to position.
mm,
The ones that have healthier feet, the big toes pointing further away from the rest of the toes, they
mm,
tend to also have better balance,
mm.
just in general, better body awareness, and also a smoother transition.
So if you want to do any, like if you want to do yoga or any martial arts or maybe any sports, I don't know, we don't need to dig into every sport right now, but starting to work on spreading your toes and getting more foot awareness, that will help. That will probably help you to learn faster and enjoy it more, right? Because when do you enjoy? You enjoy when you're able to do stuff. You get confidence and you feel good about what you're doing when it's actually working, like what you want to do is happening, right? You want to make a move, and now you can make it smoothly and without too much effort. And so doing this, working on your feet, can help that, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. But working on our feet, meaning then helping our big toe come to the right alignment, working on strengthening our feet, and also working on creating more mobility into our feet. So taking care of feet is not just going to be like do this one thing and you'll get better. It's several things combined and in a daily way, in a daily practice, right? So don't just use healthy shoes when you do that specific one workout, right? That day or those days. Or some people say, I only wear barefoot shoes when I work out. Okay, but all the other hours you're not working out, what shoes do you wear? Not the
That's
greatest
true.
ones, maybe. So healthy shoes, big toe awareness, or moving the big toe into better alignment, and then creating more mobility and flexibility into the foot, as well as strengthening the foot so that we can better our movement, and also at the same time prevent injuries.
Yeah. Okay, what about do you work with people that have flat feet?
Yes, flat feet. I do work with that as well. So flat feet are, we call them, weak feet, right? A flat foot could be characterized by like a vision of the foot not having a visible arch. When the arch of the foot, so medial, which is the inside of the foot, falls in or collapses, which is often called a weak foot. And that occurs when the toes, again the toes, they can't support the arch due to tight shoes. The shoes again, the toes and the shoes. Um, and so the toes, they have connection directly or indirectly to the rest of the foot, right? Including the arch. And those muscles and the tendons that aid movement control might then be so-called disconnected. So when the arch of the foot loses the support and the ligament that holds the joints together then weakens over time, it results in a flattening of the foot or
Hmm.
flattening of the arch. Um, And this could be the muscle imbalances and also injuries that are related to it. And in order to improve this, will then be exercises to strengthen the arch, and then combined with proper footwear, with good shoes, in order to elevate the issue of flat feet or weakened feet, right?
So it's something you can reverse. I mean, can you? Yeah, you with exercises, and you can get it back on track, unless you're born with it and you're terminal.
Yeah, no, it's basically it's the arch that needs to be strengthened in order to improve the functionality of your foot. So strengthening the arches of the foot and then good shoe wear is what could help you. But you should not just look at your feet and be like, oh, okay, I got flat feet, so this is the one thing I'm gonna do, and then everything will get better. Often, what might be needed if you suffer from problems having flat or weak feet is to consult a professional, to then maybe book in a consultation to see, is it only the flat foot that is the issue, and then making sure that you get the right type of exercises, because not all exercises will be the ones for you, right? We can sometimes do a little bit of everything, and maybe not everything is necessary for that specific condition of the foot. And yeah, so I mean, both from my own experience and also from research, it shows that if you strengthen your feet, if you work with your arches, you can elevate, which means you can decrease the problem with flat feet, and choosing again good healthy shoes in order to manage the flat foot.
So if you have a flat foot and you believe that you're born with it, let's say, or you are born with it, let's say, or you have any other deformity on your foot where you feel maybe a bit hopeless, nothing has worked, or you've been told that there's nothing you can do about it really. You working with these kind of clients, what could they do in order to get some hope, to get some hope, if there's one thing they can do at home just to start getting connection with their foot? Is there like a movement or an exercise they can do to just see like, oh, I can, it's alive, it's not a dead thing that I'm not connected to, as a step towards the way to work with a professional that can give like a full program, let's say? Is there is there one thing you could do or people can do?
So first of all, I would say that
Flex the toes.
I mean, people are welcome to prove me wrong, but I would say that you don't necessarily are born with a flat foot or deformities. Most of the time, it is the shoe wear, so the shoes that you've been wearing since you were little, or the amount or the lack of being barefoot, that is the main issue. So it's not that you're like, oh, now I'm born with this in this way, this is how it is. There are definitely situations where there might be a completely different abnormal disformity, but majority of people's disformities or feet are from lack of healthy, proper shoes. Then we as people, especially I think in Western society, we love quick fixes. Just give us that top 3 things to do, that one thing that's going to change everything. I would say no, there is not one thing, one exercise, one thing that will make it better. It's a combination, right? Just like with diet. Just don't start eating only, if you start putting avocados into your diet, you get healthy. That's not true, because you have to look at everything else that you're doing around that. So with feet, there is not one exercise that's going to fix it for you. It
Yeah,
is
not to
very
fix, but rather to
individualistic.
get an introduction, like to feel like it's not hopeless. It's not a hopeless situation. Before I go to an expert and invest my money and time and might get disappointed because I might lose my money and time. Is there something that I can do to prove myself that, yeah, this is, maybe I should speak with somebody who can help me
Yeah.
out, you know?
So, what you can start doing is to first find better shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So you start walking in barefoot shoes. Um, and but what happens there is I've had clients that got themselves some new wider shoes. They thought they were barefoot shoes because they look wider than the rest of their shoes. But they were not wide enough, and it didn't really help them in their progress. Or you might have some barefoot shoes that might not be the barefoot shoes for you. I guess it depends there on how open you are financially. Some people that said, I'm gonna improve my feet, I'm just gonna have barefoot shoes now, and they throw out all their other shoes and they start wearing these barefoot shoes. And then maybe all of them have a really thick sole, right? Or all of them maybe have a too thin sole, and it's a shock for their body. I think there is not a like one thing fits all. There's I guess you can always start moving more barefoot. You can walk more barefoot, but it could be a bit more challenging in the Western culture, to be barefoot in the office, to be barefoot when you're working. But when you work out, if you're a movement practitioner, if you're physically active, do as much as you can barefoot. Be barefoot as much as you can at home. Give your feet a massage in the evening. Um, Avoid as much time as possible from modern narrow shoes. Play around with your feet, with your ankles, squat barefoot, do lunges, balance on your toes. There's all different type of movements we need to start using from being in this cage, this foot gel, right?
Mm-hmm.
To then slowly start opening up the feet again. And that will take some time. If you have, no rush to improve your foot, just get a pair of better shoes, get your toe spreaders, look a bit on internet on what type of movements you can do. But if you actually want to get better foot health in a slightly faster time and not just hope that's going to happen within a few years, then you should perhaps reach out to a professional that could actually guide you, because our feet they look quite similar, but at the end of the day they're so unique, and we all have experienced our issues with our feet and the relation to our shoe in a different degree. Sibling to sibling can have completely different feet depending on how much time they spend on their feet, or on their butt. So there's no one thing that fixes all. It's a combination of things and doing it daily.
So, for example, I went to Nordic Wellness, and there I see this is a gym here in Sweden, which good stuff. They let people. The one I went to, people were training without shoes. They were training in their socks. I know some gyms they don't allow that, but yeah, I saw the kids doing that, and the grown-ups, people, in my age, they wouldn't. But I saw the kids doing it, and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go. I don't care what anybody will think. If I can train without shoes, and many lifters, many like power lifters and people lifting for performance, they lift barefoot. In jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
we have a weightlifting room as well, where people go lift barefoot. So that's something you can do. But what about just flexing your toes, as you're in the shower, or something you can just, is there something you can do with your feet just to wake them up, you know?
Pulling the toes apart, sitting,
Okay.
massaging, pulling them. Yeah, moving, wiggle your toes as much as you
Mm-hmm.
can. I mean, now I sit on the floor and I wiggle my toes, I move my ankles. Yeah, working with your feet as much as you can daily, several times a day if possible. But also you want to do any sort of load on your feet in a healthy alignment, right? So when you're barefoot, not when you're in modern, fancy, good-looking shoes. That's not going to make a healthy impact on them. So whenever you're barefoot, move your toes. Try to splay them, which means
Mm-hmm.
spreading out the toes.
Mm-hmm.
Sit, massage them, pull them, wiggle them.
Okay.
and with your fingers pull the toes and so on,
Mm.
because there's a lot of tension often, a lot of muscle tension in the feet, a lot of stress and stiffness in the feet that also prevent the feet from coming into a healthy position. If you have a lot of stress in your feet and tension and then suddenly go into barefoot shoes or more walking barefoot, it can be quite uncomfortable. So give your feet love in different ways, just like you give someone else love. There's not just one thing that's going to work out forever and you just do that one little thing per day. There's several things you have to do. Even the things you might not really find too exciting to do, you still do it, you show up, do that for your feet if you want them to carry you throughout your whole
Mm.
life.
I got this one of many exercises from my physiotherapist for working on my sciatica, and that was this.
Mm.
You know, this. It's a ball which is a bit hard, but not completely hard. It's like a hard foam ball, uh, which you use for massaging your back in the places you don't reach or what whatever. And
Mm.
she said also roll your foot on that, for 30 seconds or 1 minute on each side as
Yeah.
one of the exercises of the many exercises I had to do. And it felt great. I mean, it feels good. It's like, wow, it's like a foot massage, Not as extreme as a Thai
Mm.
foot massage where they take a chopstick and just force it into different pressure
Shove
points.
it in. Yeah.
Brutal. That's brutal. Mm, well, yeah, I don't remember it being
Yeah.
anything else but brutal. How much time do you have, by the way? We've gone now for 1 hour, 10 minutes.
Yeah, I have a little bit more time.
Okay. Yeah, because I have some more questions. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Are you ready? Yeah. So
Yeah.
we talked about shoes. We talked about spreading the toes and connecting with the feet and so on. Mm, what about? Do you have any fun facts, funny facts, myths about feet?
About.
Yeah. For example, what about this thing? Let me ask you something crazy. It's crazy. Is there any connection to people say, well, big feet, big
Dot dot dot.
dot dot.
Um, I believe that it would be quite hard to make a research that is related to feet and genital size, right? I don't think that would be too easy to actually get funding for that type of research. Maybe there is that research done, but I doubt it. Um, there are of course myths about feet, like with anything in this crazy world, right? But a lot of people love blaming things on that it's genetic, a lot of things with their
They're
feet.
born the
I
way
guess
they're
that could
born.
be a myth, right? Yeah, this is how I'm born, this is how it, like, I remember when I commented with my hammer toe, my pinky toe being a bit more curled in, and so I mentioned that to basically how I got into this foot awareness thing was through my ex fiance, and when I mentioned to him showing my pinky toe, I'm like, oh, but this is how my mother also have it. She also has a little curly toe, so I got it from her. And he was just like shaking his head and rolling with his eyes, like, no, it's not genetic. It's the shoes,
Hmm.
it's the footwear. So that is one of the bigger myths, that we love blaming it on others, but it's our own decisions of how we treat our feet. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, I thought I thought maybe I was born my let's say index finger, my index toes, they're curled, and I know some people they have longer.
Mm.
Those toes are longer than their what do you call it? The thumb, the foot. What do they call it? The big toe.
Yeah, the big toe.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'm pretty sure my ones were longer. And now I'm pretty sure that I was using too small shoes for too long as a kid. And I didn't know.
Mm.
I do remember I had tight shoes when I was a kid. I had tight shoes.
Yeah.
Are you should you always rather have a little bit bigger shoes than exact size? Or now you say that you should have these
Mm,
special shoes that are like where your feet have space. But what about length? Should they also be like half a size bigger?
so if you would only go for regular shoes, so modern mainstream shoes, and
Hmm.
then just go for a size uh, bigger, which would necessarily not give the toes more space, but maybe just a bit more length in the shoe. But that pointy part would just extend, which doesn't really give any functionality. It could actually
Mm.
rather give it a bigger chance to trip and fall, right? Because
Okay. Yeah.
you think that the feet are as big as the shoe, but they're not. So you want the width. It's not
Yeah.
about the length.
Right. Right. I was told, for example, if you, for example, run ultra marathons, your feet, or you run marathon, your feet expand as you run because they get swollen, they get like filled with blood because that's the point working, right? And so you need to have a little bit more space in your shoe. You need to have a bigger size shoe, but maybe also broader and wider and bigger in general.
Yeah, wider, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Are there? How did you get into this in the first place? Do you have a foot fetish or something? Like, how did you end up working with feet?
Yeah, so definitely not. Definitely not. Far away. So, long story short, let's see if it'll be a long story short. I like to
Yeah.
say short story long. But I had problem with my shin splints through majority of my childhood. When I did any workouts, any running, I never liked it because there was so much pain in my shins and sometimes in my feet as well. When I transitioned to martial arts, I love jumping, skipping during the warm ups, and I could not do that. Doctors said I could either just modify my training to no jumping and skipping and running, or do a surgery, which means cutting up the muscles of my shins. And that would take months to heal, and it's not necessarily that that would help in the end of the day. So I thought, definitely not going to do that. But I guess I'll modify. And I started to modify. I did that during majority of my childhood until I started to travel more. And I was always traveling in warmer countries around the equator, which allowed me to be more barefoot or in wide open sandals and wide open shoes. So then I could finally have my feet being as open and as wide as possible. And I spent a lot of time barefoot. You know, I was even living in bigger cities, walking barefoot, which would be maybe a bit crazy and a huge hippie stamp, but that's how I rolled back then. I did hiking for days barefoot. And people were in hiking shoes, not understanding how I could do this. But I guess that was like this felt like the most natural thing for me to do, to be barefoot and to actually allow my feet to take up as much space as they need to. And then after some time I started to run more, from not being able to run at all, not even running to the bus because of pain. I then, when I lived on islands, which were like beautiful long beaches, I could run barefoot on the beach. My shins were warmed up, my body was warmed up, the muscles were not tensed up because of the heat, and I could run barefoot in the sand. It was really heavy, it was hard, but it allowed my feet to strengthen. As I continued to travel around the world and live in different places, I tried to run barefoot as much as I could, and I realized I can't run with shoes on pavement, on regular grounds. I can only do that in nature, on soft ground, when I'm barefoot. When I moved back to Sweden and I moved to Gothenburg, I then met my ex fiance, who is a foot specialist, and it was through him that I went into next level of foot awareness. And obviously, living together during the pandemic, one has consultations at home, and you kind of like a fly on the wall in that consultation, being a part of the whole journey from start to end of a person's foot issues. I learned a lot from that, and since the first day, I have never wear regular shoes. I've only been wearing barefoot shoes since I got to know about the importance of our feet. So that had helped me so much with my movement practice, with my martial arts, now I can run, I can sprint, I can run long distance, which I never have been able to do before at all. Um, and I've gotten much better awareness into my movement practice in general. And also, fast forward, I'm now also taking consultations myself, and helping my students and clients with their foot issues.
That's awesome. Wow. What a foot
So
journey.
no fetish at all.
No fetish. What, what
No, but
is there?
there definitely are those peoples out there.
What is that about? Is there anything? Do you know anything about that?
No, no, and I would prefer not going into it. There are people definitely that do like that are contacting, on the internet, want to have everything foot related. But there's a little bit of everyone on this planet, and we all have our weird sides. And for some, it's the feet.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly the muscles in your feet are connected to almost every other part of your body. So maybe there's something to that. Where
Yeah, I don't know, but we have a lot of senses in our, like, sensory receptors in our feet, right? We can feel a lot through our feet. We can tickle them. We can feel that some parts of our feet feel more sensitive to others. But I don't think that is definitely anything related to foot fetish. I think it's more that a person is being aroused by looking at feet or touching or having any access to anything that is foot related, like socks or shoes or whatever. So I think the physical thing, that's a different story. Everyone loves a foot massage, or majority of people love a foot massage. If they don't have foot issues, then there's a bigger chance you love it, and it doesn't have to be anything related to foot fetish.
I can imagine it has something to do with, you know, mostly people cover up their feet, right? Like their private parts, and so
Mm.
and so it's like what's underneath that, and also I know some people hate feet and they don't like the looks of them, and some people love it, and some people take care of their feet where they look healthy, clean, and good, and so on, and other people, unfortunately they might have problems with their toenails or something, or they're so crooked because of the shoe, and so they don't
Shoes.
look very
Yeah.
aesthetic, or something like that, and so maybe there's a fetish because of this. You don't know what's underneath there.
Unknown thing in the shoe.
Yeah, yeah.
Perhaps, I don't know. I mean, I can not relate. I'm not sure, but maybe there's something connected to that. Who knows? Only the ones who knows, they know.
I mean, if you see these Huarani, I think that's what they call this tribe in Amazon, or tribes in Amazon. These Huarani feet were dirty, spreading toes. They can grip anything with their feet.
Mm.
I mean, for us, they don't look very. I guess they don't look very. I don't know, sexually
Attractive.
appealing or something like that. Yeah, I mean, but
I mean,
they do look functional. They look like they're able to work with their separate toes, and they can grip stuff, which they can.
yeah. Well, I guess we all have different views of what a foot should look like, especially if someone doesn't have as much awareness to feet and foot health. Then they may think that a really crooked, squeezed in, pointy, shoe shaped foot is more attractive than a wide, strong, muscular foot.
Mhm.
From my standpoint, I think it's more attractive with a healthier foot, which is a wider foot, rather than one
Yes,
that's been disformed by shoes.
of course. And I think coming back to this first thing there, these Chinese feet, I believe the reason why they bound these feet was it became a fashion thing at some point, but the actual
Yeah.
reason was to have these girls or women not run away when they were, maybe married into some marriage or
Crazy.
relation which they didn't want to be in.
Mm.
So they couldn't escape that easily. They couldn't run. That's something that I saw about that, which is
That's
crazy.
horrendous.
Yeah, and then maybe
Mm.
from that, it also started to become like a fashion trend or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Okay, I have, I think, last question. What's
All
the
right.
one or two or three, just one, biggest or transformational journeys that you've had with your client? Like one client, we've taken them from, a terrible state, let's say, to where they're actually healthy,
Mm.
functional in their feet.
Oh, I think there's great stories that I am not even aware of that are taking place with my students. For example, one woman is suffering from a disease called MS, and she said that just working more with her feet and with yoga practice um, frequently has helped her reduce the symptoms of MS, which I think is a beautiful thing to hear, and something that I had
Mm,
no idea until she told me years after practicing with me, right?
mm,
Another client that had plantar fasciitis, which is um, a tremendous pain in the sole of your foot from walking, running, sometimes even just standing on them. And how that has reduced by simply giving a little bit of love, a few minutes per day, and better shoes. I think the biggest thing is, yeah, when you don't have that physical constant pain, that is the biggest transformation. Sometimes people need to fall into such a bad state with their feet until they start actually doing something about it, right? That's majority of the stories, like anything else. Why did you start doing this workout? Why did you change to a different diet? Why did you, move to this country, change this job? Because you were at the bottom and you needed to be at the bottom in order to really open up your eyes and do something about it. So, recommendation: don't wait until you're at the bottom. It'll be a bit more work. Start taking care of your feet earlier today.
yeah, that's the common thing with most people that that start learning about something. They wait until there is a lot of pain, physical pain, or they have an issue with something. Um, like when I'm teaching language, a lot of the students, I actually have two different kinds of students. Let's say those who come because they spent a lot of time in Sweden, or they met, their partner's family so many times until the point where they feel, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be the one. I want to be able to speak Swedish. I don't want to force everybody to speak English around me. But then there are also these people that come like, I'm moving to Sweden in 3 years. I want to start learning now. For any specific
Damn.
reason?
Wow.
No, just for fun. I just want to learn it. Just, yeah, I want to be prepared when I come. Some people are like that, but like you say,
Mm.
it's better to come before it's a big pain and a big problem, especially when it's physical, right? When it's your foot, because if your foot is
Preventing.
not
Mm.
good, if it's like the biggest issue, the biggest danger with old people is that they have porous bones, and they get bad balance, and then they fall and they break their hip. And if you're 70 years old and you break your hip, it can be devastating.
Reducing your quality of your lifestyle the last years tremendously.
So get your
Yeah,
feet to start working on them early. Yeah. What can
yeah.
people, if people want to get in touch with you and have a consultation with you and learn something about their feet, where can they find you?
I'm very simple. Instagram is the easiest. I am on Facebook, but it's not as fast of a response. So basically, it's better to reach out to me through Instagram or through LinkedIn. I am currently based in Gothenburg, Sweden, where I do
Hey.
physical consultations, which is preferred. Yeah, which is preferred, but it's also possible to do it online if you're in a different location. Yeah, so just reaching out to me there, send me a DM. or if you find my email somewhere on the web, send me an email there, reach out in any way. If you find me on the streets or in a yoga class, then don't hesitate to talk and to say hi and to ask questions, and I'm happy to help you.
What is your Instagram?
My Instagram is basically my name, and yoga is Rebecka Latos. Yoga,
Latos.
Rebecka Latos, yoga. Or just Google me, and I'll pop up a little bit here and there.
And I'll put the links here in the podcast
Fantastic.
description as well. Okay, is there anything else we have missed or you would like to add to this conversation for this time?
I don't think so. Um, no, I think just don't wait too long. If there is a some sort of discomfort already, then it's just a matter of time until it actually becomes a proper challenge or injury, or reduces your quality of life. And that's all we want to have, right? Good quality of life, really. So take care of yourself, take care of your feet. They're gonna keep you walking forward through life, or running or jumping or dancing through life. So make sure that they can do that they have the opportunity to do so. And yeah, keep on
Okay, one,
practicing.
one, one last short question. What advice would you give your younger self, like when you were, let's say, a teenager? You know, that's the trouble age. When you're a teenager, you're all confused and you don't know what to do with your life and so on. Maybe, I mean, for some people. What advice would
Yeah.
you give teenager you?
In what context?
I don't know. Maybe regarding feet
Anything. Okay,
or anything.
feet.
Yeah, health for
Um,
health and for
mm, I don't know. I was pretty great as a teenager.
Uh,
No, but uh, I think we're
mm, awesome, great. Thank you, Rebecca. Tack. Good talk. Good talk. Okay. So we'll end it here. And yeah, thank you, everybody, for listening. Vi ses. Ciao. Ciao. Okay. Now it's